Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Craig Perra from Sex Addictions and Porn Afflictions. I'm so honored that you are here listening. Today is a very, very special day. We have an incredible guest here, and I'm beyond excited to learn his perspective around healthy sexuality. And today we have Dr. Harry Fisch. He is a board-certified urologist. He's world famous. I can literally, Harry, is that okay? Can I say world famous? I mean, that's, that sounds fair.
World famous it is. I love it.
World famous, yeah. And one of the nation's leaders in the diagnosis and treatment of men's health issues. Doctor, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Welcome.
Craig, my pleasure. I think you're doing such great work. So it's an honor for me to be on the podcast.
Thank you. And so many of my men out there can learn so much. And what I like about what you said about, men's health issues, and we've talked previously on, how we define the issue, sex addiction versus porn addiction. And at the end of the day, these men and these couples are pursuing healthy sexuality. And you've been in this business, dare I say, a long time. Harry, when did you start to appreciate really the power of pornography and the impact that it may have been having on people's sex lives? Because when we grew up, we looked at pictures in magazines, and it wasn't the notion that this wonderful, incredible, magazine and my first porn video would somehow cripple my sexuality and move me away from my wife was completely foreign. When did you start to notice?
I think I'm a fertility doctor at the very basis of what I do. Over the years, what I've learned about sexuality and sexual health is really from my patients, because, you can't get this stuff from books, the stuff that I've learned and the stuff that I've seen. So when I look back at and problems that have been going on specifically about porn addiction or issues of that sort for a long time, but I would say I realized that it was a problem with patients about 10 years ago. That doesn't mean it didn't exist before. What I mean is the first thing that I saw, and I didn't even know it was related to pornography, was couples trying to have a baby, and the man cannot ejaculate when he's having sex. He can ejaculate after by masturbating. And then what ended up happening is that I realized that a lot of guys are watching, particularly these patients that can't ejaculate it. And by the way, there's a terrible word for it. It's called retarded ejaculation. It's the only place that I guess you could use that word and it still be, acceptable. Or in the Howard Stern show, you could say.
Yeah, well, and I think they use that word in relation to cars. There's a certain belt that retards, and so there's two places here and dealing with cars. But yeah, no,
That's right. So what I realized is these couples had serious problems because they couldn't have babies. If you can't ejaculate, you're not having a baby, and of course, it was a devastating impact on the woman. But that's when I realized later that, then when you ask, I'm watching a lot of pornography, and I'm not getting the same experience from my wife or girlfriend than I am than by masturbating. And I think the excessive masturbating to pornography and the images is what's going on. And that I only figured that out 10 years ago, to be honest with you.
Wow. What? How did the guys feel at that kind of early stages? What was it like for the men that you were working with back in this time when you finally realized it was their sexual expression, their porn and masturbation?
Well, I always say that sex is the barometer of a relationship, and really it's best to have the best sex in a relationship. Now, does that sound stupid or what? Does that sound obvious? It does, but it really is true. If a couple is not having sex, and by the way, if you're not having sex, then one person is a problem. There's an issue. Either your wife, let's say, assume you're married. Your wife may not want to have sex with you. Maybe you're not lasting long enough. Maybe you don't, have enough foreplay. And by the way, foreplay begins in the morning, putting the dishes in the dishwasher. Or it may be that, you're not ejaculating. Something is going on. So there will be a problem in the relationship. Unless you're happy being like a brother and a sister and living, together. But that's not a relationship. So I always say sex is important. Now, when I did bring up the fact that it's related to pornography, the couple felt a lot better, believe it or not, because it wasn't a physical problem per se, although there's a physical aspect to it, but it wasn't like I got an illness. It's not like I got diabetes that's causing this. Oh, it's the pornography. So then once you understand the deep, not the deep problem, but the actual core issue that's involved, well, then you could attack it. Then you could do something about it. So the direct answer to your question, couples were happy in a way that, oh, I get it. And I'm not the only one, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, no, so true. Is it the porn, doctor, or is it the masturbation, or a combination thereof, in your opinion, that wreaks the most havoc on couples' lives?
Well, if there's a problem with delayed ejaculation. Now, pornography, look, nothing is wrong unless there's never a problem unless it's a problem. I think Einstein said that.
Yeah.
But my point is, if you like alcohol, you drink a glass or two. I get it. That's not a problem. But if you're drinking the whole bottle, that's a problem, right? So I never would like to say things are a problem, but there's certain degrees of excessiveness. So if you're masturbating too much and you get accustomed to a certain sensation, then the vagina doesn't have that sensation.
Right.
And so it's the excessive masturbation. Now, why is somebody masturbating excessively? Well, it doesn't have to be because of the porn. It could be because of some other reason. Maybe, I guess there's some people who masturbate too much to pictures. But pornography has been so common. It's so easy. In fact, somebody said the computer was invented to show pornography, right?
I know.
So
I love
because
that.
it's so there. So it's a combination of things. Because now, would somebody have a problem with excessive masturbation without pornography? As I said, yeah, that could happen. But it's just so easily available now that it makes it worse.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found, Harry, in working with my clients is that the type of pornography that they're watching, and you talked about the physiological sensation of the death grip, the rapid, hand motion while masturbating, the vagina unable to provide that same level of pleasure because of that intense stimulation the man is accustomed to. I've also find that there's a psychological impact of the type of porn that men are watching, because it is very, very typical in my work for men to report that they started their pornography habit, if you will, with magazines, then videos where you had to fast forward to a certain point, then couples having heterosexual sex, then group sex, then gangbangs, then violent aggressive sex, then transgender pornography, which is inconsistent, at least they believe, with their sexuality. The pornography gets worse, and that has its own physiological effect on that arousal mechanism. And that's been my experience. Have you experienced things similar, or does that even make sense to you?
No, it does make sense because it's not reality. So people watching different, look, who knows what turns people on, right? There's no answer to that.
Right.
But at the very basic is when I talk to couples and we realize that, let's say the husband, or it could be the wife too, but in my practice, it's a men's health practice. So I say, so what kind of pornography do you watch? And, and they describe certain things. But then what I really say, since I'm not judging, or I'm not trying to figure out exactly, is the pornography good or bad? I don't want to judge like that. But let's say somebody says, well, I like it, the very basic way of saying it. I like maids in the pornography. And I actually had this with a couple. So I literally told the wife, I said, would it be helpful if your wife would dress up like a maid? And the guy said, absolutely. That was like his desire. And you know what? The wife was thrilled.
Yeah.
And
It's so funny you mentioned that, because what I hear often is I'll make a similar suggestion to a man, because, when I look at the pornography that they're watching, it's almost like a fingerprint around their sexuality. You can understand what turns them on, what turns them off, what really touches that button. And they've got to incorporate that into their sexuality, but they've attached such shame to their desires. That might be through their moral conflict with pornography, their recognition that their partner may not support their pornography habit. Oftentimes their religious conflict. People who are religious in nature have a greater chance of being diagnosed as a sex addict, particularly by a religious counselor, than the general population. And then, I'd say to the man, well, would it help if your wife did X, Y, or Z? And they say, oh my God, yeah. I said, well, why don't you ask her? I couldn't do that.
I'll give you a way around it.
She would never do it. And the wife is like, what are you talking about? Give me the chance. You took that away from me. And they're really pissed off.
Oh, Craig, you're right on target. It's absolutely true. But I'll give you a little suggestion. What I have couples do every now and then is I'll give them both a piece of paper and write the 5 things. First of all, I always say you write the 5 things you like about each other. In fact, sometimes I say write the 3 things you like. I don't want it to be like too much of a burden. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm stuck at 4. I can't get to 5. Help me. Doctor, what are you doing to me over here?
Holy shit, I didn't know it was going to be that much of an exam.
She has nice sneakers. Go on.
Right. So that could cause a problem. But let's say we'll stick at 3. But then you say, okay, write the 5 things that you want your wife to do to improve your sex life. Because as you said, it's hard for a man or a woman, but I'll say for a man to really express themselves verbally because they don't want to be shot down. They don't want to say, what are you, crazy? So at least if it's on paper, and then you have the wife actually write what she wants the man to do. And then you negotiate. You really negotiate. And really, men tend to be more physical and concentrating on the orgasm, while women are more, again, I'm generalizing, more of emotional, or really, more of less on the 5 minutes that they're having sex, more on the entire day and after as well. Not all women, of course, but at least the couples that I see in a relationship, it tends to be more like that.
I love that. And it is so important, as you just said, to put that on the table. So for you couples who are listening and watching, pay very careful attention. What is it that you like? What turns you on? What are your desires? What do you like that you're afraid to share with your partner? And then question the belief system that's preventing you from sharing it with your partner. Because one of the exercises that I do, Harry, because my men, common denominator, every man that I see who believes their number one problem is sex and porn addiction, and it's always the symptom. That's never the number one problem, but that's how it's manifesting, is in shame. There is so much shame. Their sexuality as a whole is a dirty, disgusting part of themselves. And that's a function of how they were raised. That may be a function of religious teachings, the environment, and the culture in which sexuality is treated. It's demonized on one hand. And I remember as a Catholic, I learned that sex was dirty and disgusting, and you save it for someone you love, right? And what I have the guys do is I have them pretend that their partner accidentally and gently bumped their heads. So they're in the kitchen, they're fine, everybody's safe, no long-term problems, but that bump caused her to rewire, in that her sexual drive, her pleasure comes from exclusively pleasing you. Like anything that you want, she loves. As long as you love it, it makes her so happy. And I gotta tell you, that is one of the hardest exercises for guys to do, because they've got this belief system, this shame. I can't. No, I don't even feel comfortable writing it down. And eventually they do and find it very liberating.
Right. Interesting. You said that that the porn addiction or some of these is just a symptom of an underlying problem. And you had told me that a lot of. Tell me again. The underlying problem is the narcissism.
No,
Is it,
yeah, great question. I love this conversation. The underlying problem for every man that I have ever worked with is a lack of love for self. And this doesn't mean everybody who watches porn doesn't love themselves, but when someone is compulsively numbing and coping using this product, using this expression of their sexuality, that becoming the dominant expression, that taking away from other areas of their lives, their career, their finances, their health, their hobbies, their relationships, and their spirituality. Whether it's the CEO of the big company or the FedEx delivery driver, the common denominator with every client that I've ever worked with is a lack of love for self, a part of themselves that is never good enough, that is, we call it not good enough guy in our work as they connect with that good enough guy. And there's always a component of unhealthy sexuality as a child. So that's kind of the high level overview of the men that I work with. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's but it's a complicated sort of concept, to be honest with you. They're never good because we all are insecure in ways. Sometimes what I tell couples and who are addicted to all these sort of things and self-pleasure or pleasing themselves with the sex addiction is and you know what, I asked you this because I don't know what the underlying thing, and your theory or your understanding is actually better than mine when it comes to this. But sometimes I think, well, what can we do about it? And what I find is that when we get the man to think about the partner more than he thinks about himself, that's the start, that's the path to a good relationship and to a better sex life. Do you find that to be true?
Oh, absolutely. Because one of the another common denominator of most of my clients, and this is particularly for the men whose sex addiction involves infidelity, cheating, chronic use of prostitutes, strip clubs, et cetera, Harry, what did you just say last? I lost my train of thought. Bring me back on track.
I said that the most important thing at the end of the day is for the man to pay attention to his wife.
Yes, thank you. You got me.
More about her than
That common denominator is the lack of empathy. That common denominator is a lack of empathy. Their inability to love themselves has challenged their ability to give that love to someone else. And so true.
Craig, what I tend to do is I say, look, you got to focus on the person that's in front of you. Which, by the way, if you think about pornography, there's nobody in front of you. There's a computer screen. And a lot of times pornography has men who watch it have lost the concept of, how to talk to and again, let's talk about the wife or the girl, whatever, but I'll say the wife, because the computer screen doesn't talk back to you. So there has to be mechanisms by which we tell men how to talk to their wives, how to talk to their girlfriends, and how to please their wives and girlfriends. And I got to tell you something. I wrote a book. The last book is called The New Naked, and it's about sex education for adults. You remember? Craig, what's unbelievable is, you get sex education when you're in, I don't know, in high school, if you're lucky, if you live in a community or junior high school, and they teach you about sexually transmitted diseases, right? They teach you about the anatomy. But once you start having sex, nobody tells you how to have sex. Nobody tells you what you're doing, what women like, what men like. It doesn't, there's so many facts that nobody's giving it at all. And for women, a lot of times, I guess they get the information from Cosmo. But my book, the first book was Size Matters, and the second was The New Naked. So The New Naked was, again, sex education, but it also brought in the communication skills. And it's very easy, and I know guys who are listening, I hope you're going to, I try to keep it as simple as possible. There's a chapter for men that when it comes to communicating with your wife, your spouse, and the chapter is called Shut the Fuck Up. what happens is a lot of times
we're a lot alike,
that
Harry. I love it. I love it. Shut the fuck up. Listen, go. I love it. Let's be blunt. Let's get real here. We're talking about sex.
Well, because, and I'm not blaming women, because, but you know, when women say, "Well, you need to listen to me," right? You need to listen. Well, what the hell does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So for men, what I tell them, look, what that means is shut the fuck up. Let your wife, your girlfriend, finish talking, because you know we interrupt, and if you interrupt, you ruined it.
That's
so
right.
Women, in fact, I like to tell them, look, if your wife is talking and you think you're going to interrupt, just say to your wife, "Tell me more. Tell me more." If you say, "Tell me more," I guarantee your wife is going to say, "Holy cow, what a great guy. He listened to me." Because while men want to do, women, and again, I'm generalizing and I apologize, but you know, it is kind of
it's true.
the generalization. Oh, true. They want to tell you what's going on. And that doesn't mean that they're asking you to fix something. That's another flaw.
Yeah.
So shut the fuck up and don't fix anything. Because men, you know, look, we want to fix something, right?
Yes.
They don't want you to fix anything. They just want to talk to you and tell you what they're doing and what the problems are. But then don't start fixing. Just listen. And that means shut the fuck up and don't. And now, by the way, it doesn't mean you don't say something, but when the conversation is over. Now, this is awful what I'm about to tell you. But again, it's for women hate to hear this, but guys understand it. And it's nothing derogatory. But, you know, sometimes we really do have a hard time listening, particularly if we have ADD and things like that. And I tell men jokingly, I said, look, you know when your wife, again, sometimes you're not paying attention, you know when your wife is finished talking is when her lips stop moving. So if you are not paying attention, at least look at her lips. Don't interrupt. She's talking. Now, at the end, you are expected to say something and be a productive part of the conversation, but you have to let your wife or girlfriend, you know, finish expressing herself first. And that's critical.
I think you have just saved couples millions of dollars in couples therapy sessions if they just follow that advice. That is so spot on. I mean,
well, Craig, you know, it's funny you say
personally.
That. Let me say, it's funny you say it because I tell couples, I'm not a psychologist, I just have a lot of experience, and that I tell them, look, a half hour with me is like 2 years with a therapist.
I love it. That's that blunt, boom, right to the point. And one of the, I think, gifts that this sex addiction and porn addiction crisis is, one of the gifts that's coming from this, it is forcing men to honor and respect that part of themselves, their sexual health. It's such an important part of who we are. And so many men say they ignored it, they never paid attention to it, they never thought about it. But now when they think of their physical health, their mental health, their spiritual health, their sexual health touches each one of those areas. And so as that becomes a priority in their lives, they're able to research and connect with people like you and people like me and other people out there helping them in this area, where, as you said, none of us got any other training. Do you feel we're at a point in time right now where more and more people are talking about this and almost by necessity?
Well, I'm talking about it, and that's because by necessity, nobody has the information. And I think, like, a lot of times there's when it comes to sexual health, there's a psychological aspect, a physical aspect, and a medical aspect, and it all boils down to all of them together. Like, for example, I was watching some show, Dr. Phil, and they had this obese guy, must have weighed like 400 pounds, let's say 300 pounds, but he was obese, and they weren't having sex. There was a couple that wasn't having sex, and so the real answer was, you need to talk to each other more. I said, talk to each other more. The guy can't get an erection. He's got no testosterone, and he has severe erectile dysfunction. What are you talking about? So while it's true, but at every level there has to be the basic health and the basic understanding of what the couple wants. So the physical aspect is as important as everything else. So back to the actual question, yes, there's a lack of information out there, and I'm getting it out there more. Now, let me just tell you one more thing. Just what women do tell me in their relationship, and I mentioned before about foreplay. You know, men need less foreplay than women. And essentially, I tell men foreplay starts in the morning, put the dishes in the dishwasher. Because what that means is you're actually acknowledging what your wife is doing, and you're helping, and you're not walking away or treating her like she's like a maid or something like that. Because if you're the sort of guy that just gets up in the morning, has breakfast, maybe your wife makes, and you don't help out at all, well, you're screwed. You're never going to have a good relationship.
Yeah.
So start off like that. Call your wife once in a while, or your girlfriend, text. Just that one time, you'll be shocked at how easy it is to turn things around. And that said, you got to, and you were pointing about how important the sexual life is. I've never met anybody who had a great sex life in their marriage and got divorced. It usually doesn't work that way. If you got a good sex life, you ain't going to get divorced. And if you got a good sex life, guess what? You're going to be happy. You're going to talk to your friends in a different way. You're not going to be miserable. I mean, if you're miserable, chances are you have a terrible sex life.
That's right.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, and you're underperforming in other areas in your life. I mean, it's such an important part. Harry, I am so grateful that you're here. I just want to leave this great call, and I'd love to have you back. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do. What's your message for couples? What do you want to say to the people listening? Many of the people listening to me, well, probably most of them, are struggling to create that healthy sexuality. And we've talked about how important it is. What's your message for these men and these couples?
Think about the person in front of you. Don't think about yourself. Don't think about the orgasm. Think about the person in front of you, and you do more of that, you'll be fine. And let me make a point. I know I don't want to end on that. I want to say, one of the things, the most devastating aspects that we talked about, couples and men that can't ejaculate, but the real problem, more men ejaculate too quickly. And premature ejaculation is the #1 sexual dysfunction in this country. Now, more than 50% of women don't have orgasms during vaginal intercourse. And most of it is because men don't last long enough. Not complicated.
Right.
None of this is complicated.
Wow.
Women take over 10 minutes of men usually ejaculate between 5 and 10 minutes. Most men, over about 50%, are less than 2 to 3 minutes. So my point is, you got to figure out a way around it. And let me tell you something. I'm not going to talk for women. That's not my point. But I could tell you, if I'm a woman and I'm not getting pleased, then it's a job. Then wait a minute. If you're not having fun doing it, you ain't going to do it. So one of the things I wanted to mention is, I was on the Howard Stern show I had my own show on the Howard Stern Network, and when I was on Howard talks about premature ejaculation all the time, and we developed a product called Pre-Boost. That's Preboost, Pre-Boost. You can go to preboost.com. The point is, it's the first over-the-counter medication that comes in a wipe, and then you just desensitize your penis. Now, that may sound trivial, but it is not. It is probably the most important aspect of sexuality, is making sure that the person in front of you is pleased. If you go and have sex and you have an orgasm and, goodbye, thank you very much, that ain't going to last very long at all.
Right.
So in general, the answer to your question, make sure that the person in front of you is satisfied.
Yeah, and guys, if you are struggling, please, and Harry, give the name of that website again for me. Well,
preboost.com, Preboost.com, or you can go to my website, harryfisch.com, HARRYFISCH.com.
Yeah, please, guys, check it out. So much incredible, valuable information. And I'm so glad I had you on, Harry, for so many different reasons. I love you. I love the work that you've done. I love how you've taken your incredible practice and turned it into this amazing, place where your voice is heard all over the world. But as I focus on the, mental, psychological, spiritual components of sexuality, so often I'm reminded, and it kind of is like, wait a minute. Go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. There may be a problem here. And it's that physical piece that you mentioned and how important it is, and to, get the help that you need if you're having problems ejaculating, or if you're having a retarded ejaculation. Consider this product, because I look forward to sharing it with my clients, because so many of my men struggle with this problem. Thank you so much, Dr. Harry Fisch. It is truly an honor and a privilege. Thank you for doing what you do, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Likewise, Craig. Thank you very much. And to all the listeners, thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor. Take it easy. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. That was Dr. Harry Fisch. So blessed to have him on. An incredible call. Please, please, please get the help that you need. Prioritize this part of you. Physical, mental, spiritual, right? Those three areas, you can all agree they are important. Look at your sexual health. You have to agree with me that impacts each one of those areas. So get the help that you need to be the best version of you, because memento mori, you're going to die and life is too short to suck. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.